So we are keeping an eye on this live event as Hillary Clinton defends the Iran nuclear deal in a speech that is going on right now at the Brookings Institute in Washington, D.C. So just a few moments ago, she took credit, really, for getting the ball rolling in these Iran discussions. And there's a piece on this in the Wall Street Journal today. Here's what she said about it.
And some have suggested that we just go back to the negotiating table and get a better, unspecified deal. I can certainly understand why that may sound appealing. But as someone who started these talks in the first place and built our global coalition piece by piece, I can assure you it is not realistic.
So the piece that's written in the Wall Street Journal that she is referring to in terms of her involvement early in this deal says that she was the person who originally negotiated the agreement, the tenets of it that would allow Iran to keep enriching uranium. And that's a hugely controversial tenet. So we're going to talk about that coming up with Senator Barrasso in just a few minutes.
In the meantime, you've got a growing refugee crisis. The White House saying it's considering ways to help ease matters in the Middle East and in Europe. No details yet, but officials saying State Department is leading a consideration of how to deal with the influx. And the influx now, 340,000 with no end in sight. Europe, meanwhile, struggling to accommodate hundreds of thousands seeking asylum there. And Republican frontrunner Donald Trump telling Bill O'Reilly the U.S. needs to take some sort of action.
Do you object to them coming to the USA?
I hate the concept of it, but on a humanitarian basis with what's happening, you have to. You know, this was started by President Obama when he didn't go in and do the job when he should have, when he drew the line in the sand, which turned out to be a very artificial line. But, you know, it's living in hell in Syria. There's no question about it. They're living in hell.
So you would have
intervened. Something has to be done.
Gillian Turner, former national security staffer to Presidents Bush and Obama, Fox News contributor now. Gillian, good morning to you. Take that point about the red line. If you took out Assad, would you be looking at 340,000 refugees in Europe today?
Yes, because, you know, I think that Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and others have really oversimplified the problem here. The root cause is not any one administration. The root cause here is a combination of factors that include ISIS, whose roots go back to failure in Iraq, but also this raging Syrian civil war that's in its 5th year, 4 million refugees total. So I'm a little bit... I want to hedge against kind of selling a narrative that's too simplistic here.
Well, just be clear. If you take out Assad, ISIS is still there, correct? So if ISIS is still there, then these people are still on the run. Is it that simplistic?
Again, that's certainly part of it. ISIS is still there. The ISIS problem, the roots of the ISIS problem go back to state failure in Iraq, which did not happen on the dime of this administration. So I think the political narrative here is what I'm cautioning against. Okay. You can't point to Presidents Bush or President Obama and plant this on their laps.
What do we do now? If the phrase is actively considering options, what is it? Or what are they?
I think that, yeah, so first what has to happen is that the White House is going to have to deliver this plan, whatever it is. They're going to have to do that soon, I think within the next couple of weeks. What happens from there is this gets doled out to federal departments and agencies, primarily Department of Homeland Security. And there, if we're going to take in, if the decision is to take in some Middle Eastern refugees here, they're going to have to really amp up security and vetting processes for these people, all the screening at U.S. borders.
But this isn't just Iraq and Syria, right? I mean, these...
No.
They're coming from more countries than that, correct?
They're coming from Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Yemen, which is in the middle of its own civil conflict. So it's really not just a Syrian refugee crisis, and it's also not just a European problem, as I think the administration is trying to now, you know, tell the American people. Today, as Americans, we can maybe say it's a European problem, but tomorrow it's going to be ours. You know, we're not yet at the point where we've got hundreds of thousands of people, you know, showing up at the border and demanding to get in, as Europe is having to deal with. But something like that might be happening soon.
Is this migration unprecedented? I mean, if you go back in history, I mean, wow, at what other point do you find this amount of people on the move?
Yeah, you know, it's certainly unprecedented in the 21st century outside of Africa, places in Africa that have been undergoing civil conflict. That's why this is kind of snuck up on people. It's not that the security concerns, at least for the United States, are about these people being more likely to be terrorists because they're Syrians and Middle Easterns. It's really the numbers and the scale that I think has got the administration worried here. Likewise, the Europeans. You know, it's just dealing with this incredible number, hundreds of thousands a week, is not something that any government is really prepared to deal
Gillian,
with.
do you think this was really a surprise? I mean, you could see the unrest. You saw the people on boats a year ago. They were coming.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't be a surprise, but it seems that our European friends and allies are certainly being taken aback by it, and that's why we're seeing some of these very strange responses from countries like Hungary and Austria who are saying, oh, you know, these people don't want to be here. They wouldn't be happy here anyway, so we're not going to let them in. I mean, it's those kinds of arguments that are really off the cuff kind of things that are showing us they're not prepared to deal with
this administration has some big decisions to make very soon, and the pressure of the world is watching. Gillian, thank you. Gillian Turner there in Washington, D.C. Appreciate you coming back.